My film deals a lot with the mapping of the city and the monuments that are like placed around the city, and just like questioning like, who is this about? What did they stand for? What did they accomplish? And who are we remembering? When you see something like that, doing that double take and thinking, okay, who was this person? Why is this monument here to like commemorate them? And what does that symbolize? Because there are a lot of like reminders of people that were involved with systemic oppression. And no one really thinks twice about it because either people don't know, they don't care, and it's just like something that's there and no one thinks twice about. And so basically the film follows this visual artist who initially is very like angered by this experience and by this realization, and kind of like originally has the intentions of like lashing out, but then learns through her experiences that there's a better way to go about it. And instead of lashing out, like, let's create a positive space that will do better by helping people heal and just allowing people to move forward from that rather than looking back and having so much hate towards it, because that's not gonna help anyone by being stuck in the past. It's more about, let's keep that in mind while we're moving forward so we don't repeat that again. If we need to make a change, what comes next? Do we replace these monuments or statues? Do we replace these names? Do we keep them, and do we try and like build onto them so that way we're not completely forgetting what happened? Because I don't think that's necessarily what should happen. If we like completely remove these and just replace it with something else, I think that's putting a Band-Aid over the problem. If it is being replaced, it needs to be replaced with something that is addressing these issues. And if it's staying, then we need to be drawing attention to those issues. And even if like one or two people have that awakening as well through the project, I feel like I've succeeded, because I've made a difference for like those one or two people. And that's honestly like all I've ever wanted to do with my work. Still, like, historical trauma does still have an effect on us in negative and positive ways as well, because it's something that we should still be conscious of, and we can't forget it. And we need it to remind us of like past mistakes so we're not repeating them again. Because it's interesting, because like in terms of like the Japanese Canadian internment, which is something my grandparents went through, people were being incarcerated and arrested just literally because of what they looked like. There was no one that was actually found guilty of anything, and they were all imprisoned. And it's similar stuff that was happening in the States recently, and there was a lot of like parallels being drawn to that, which is like people that are trying to immigrate to the States that are being put in cages just because of like what they look like. It's still happening in like Western society, and it's kind of like ridiculous that like something like that's still going on again. And it's like, did we not learn from the past and what was happening?
What is it you're saying about our culture that constantly makes things for people, connecting that to Japan and Canada and their past and his lineage, that says, look at the way this country does things for the people? And what is even, here's my idea, this is something you could do, but then they wrap it up like, but the larger philosophy is what?
So having access to like the mentorship from Director X was extremely useful, to like hear his insight from someone that's so experienced. Because my process typically is talking to people that are either in a similar place in their career as I am, or maybe even like a few steps ahead. But I think it's very obvious that Director X is miles ahead of where I am. So being able to hear his insight and his advice as an artist was extremely useful. That was probably the biggest thing for me, is Director X telling me, make sure that what you're trying to say is strong and make sure that it's coming out, because that's something that's important to me. And I think that in one of my early drafts of the project, it was kind of getting lost because I just kind of got a bit overwhelmed by like the research element of the project. And I don't want to necessarily make something that someone else could have made, because then why aren't they doing it, right? So yeah, I think I would like to think that the project that I'm making is only something that I could say. The amount of stress, anxiety that's in the society right now is just like overwhelming, and I think it'll help everyone if is just some kind of like additional space that's designed to have that outlet to like let go, especially like something that's more accessible than, because I think a lot of people want that and like crave that outlet, but it's not necessarily easy for them to access, like living within the city, right? Like not everyone has the ability to like drive 2 hours north to go for that hike that they really need, right? And if we want to truly be a multicultural city, I think it needs to be embedded in the core of this city. Not just this like idea of like, oh, like we have these people in the communities, which is great and obviously amazing, but like why don't we have permanent reminders of that within the city itself? Like let's take those steps to do that so people feel like more at home, that they've really placed their mark on this city, rather than just moving into something that has reminders of people from centuries ago. I think that would definitely start the process of healing, because it's like these like bigger institutions, like such as the government, actually like acknowledging these communities and basically trying to like give back in some like meaningful way and saying that you belong here, like we love you, and just like adding like a permanent like sign of that gesture rather than just like words, right? Obviously gestures speak louder than words, and I think that would be a huge part of it. So I think, why not now? Why not years ago, but why not now?